In the previous video, we looked at land as a production factor, and in this one, we're going to look at labor, because in any business, especially on a farm, without people working there, the farm will not be successful and nothing will be able to happen. So basically, labor is any physical thing someone does, any physical work, or it could be mental work, meaning, as you see here in the top picture, a guy standing with a laptop. He's not really moving around and moving anything, really. He's just standing there with a laptop, but he's using his mind to maybe plan something, design something. He needs it to manage the farm, basically. So it can be anything physical or mental, and there are then three main types of labor that you guys must be able to know and identify from pictures, hence the three different pictures we see here. So the first one is highly educated labor. So in this case, it would be that top right one again, the guy standing with the laptop. He either probably went to a university, even if he didn't, maybe he went to a college. He had some kind of formal training to be able to do what he is doing. So usually with your highly educated labor, these are the people that get the most pay. Then secondly, you have skilled individuals, skilled labor, how to have some kind of training, whether it's, again, when going to a college, or maybe they attended some kind of seminar, anything that would just train them in a specific skill. And of these three pictures, it would be this one in the right bottom corner, a guy shearing a sheep, because not anyone can actually do this. You do need some kind of skill. Somebody must have shown you what to do, how to use a shearer, and then also how to handle the sheep so that the sheep does not get hurt. So this then is skilled labor. Again, it'll get a little bit more money than somebody who never trained to do anything, but this person will get less money than, say, a highly educated person. And then the last bullet there is unskilled labor. So that means you can get any guy off the street or any random person just to help you work. And in this case, it will be this guy right here. Because he is packing fruit in this case, or taking it from point A to point B, it doesn't take a lot of skill to be able to do this. I mean, even kids can move an object from one point to the next. So you need no background training, really. You just have to be able to follow orders to do this. So you have highly educated, skilled, and unskilled labor. Again, they will show you guys pictures, not the same ones as these, just random pictures. And then from the picture, you must identify the type of labor. Then also there are different types of employment, and this has to do with the time frame of how long a person works or when a person works. So you have full-time labor. This is usually laborers that works about 48 hours per week. It can be anything more than this, but it cannot be anything less than 48. So full-time, this person is working every day on the farm, usually 5 days a week. And then you have part-time labor or part-time employment. This usually is for people that work on the farm or a business less than 48 hours per week. So maybe half day type thing. Every day, 5 days a week they come in, but they only work until 1 o'clock, say, instead of working until 5 o'clock. Then the third bullet there is you have seasonal employment. Usually this is for when people work a couple of months. So here we have the picture of a guy harvesting apples from a tree. Usually this only happens in summertime or springtime, because in the wintertime, trees don't bear fruit. So you don't need a permanent person to help you harvest in general, because you don't harvest every day of the year. So it's a seasonal thing. And then lastly, you have temporary work, meaning they only come in when the job needs to be done. So that's like a specific task must be done. And here we have a picture of a guy fixing a tractor. Your tractor does not break down every day. If it did, it would be a very bad thing for the farmer, and it'll be very costly. But usually this is something that only happens maybe once a year if you're very lucky, or maybe once a month if you're not so lucky. But it doesn't happen every day. So a temporary guy you get to come fix your tractor, and he comes, he fixes it, and then he goes. So that's your temporary employment. Then also, usually with labor, there will always be problems. So the first one usually is a lack of skill or training, meaning if you do hire someone, maybe they lied on their CV or whatever, and they've got certain skills, you want a tractor driver. Now you've got the worker, but now he struggles with the tractor. You find out he never had the training or the skill to be able to drive the tractor. That's just an extreme case. Sometimes you do have good workers, but now you need someone to help you harvest, but none of the workers you have can work the combine or help you harvest. So a lack of skills or training, and that's usually a problem. Secondly, strikes. Yes, so strikes happen all over the world here in the corner, not just in South Africa. So if there's a problem with wages or maybe working hours or anything, workers can go on strike. So that's bad for the farmer in this case, or the owner of the business, because then no work is done, so meaning no money is being made. Thirdly is absenteeism, meaning when the labourer never pitches to work. Now you have one less or a couple of less workers. Also, maybe if they do pitch, sometimes they pitch late. So now instead of working again your 48 hours a week, they're working less and less. But if they are on a contract employed as full-time workers, you still have to give them their full pay. So this is usually bad. And also, again, with a late worker, they actually have to be penalised for the fact that they came late. And this is now wasting money for the farmer, in this case, if it's on a farm, because now less work is being done. Then also theft, obviously, if something's being stolen, the farmer, his business gets hurt because of it. If there is equipment damage, then obviously no work can be done if maybe the labourer, in this case, accidentally or on purpose damaged equipment that has to be used on the farm. And then lastly, social problems. So social problems can be maybe health issues of workers, maybe workers have issues with one another, they are fighting amongst themselves, or maybe they hurt each other or whatever. So now no work is being done. So that's also bad for the farmer. Okay, so basically, with all those problems, what can the farmer actually do to increase labor productivity? What can he do to try and prevent all those problems from happening? So the first thing is to actually hire optimum number of laborers, meaning you don't need 50 farm workers. Generally, if it's a small scale farm and let's say you only have 50 cattle to look after, you maybe get 1 or 2 guys to look after the cattle, not one guy per cow or per bull. You get 1 guy to look at all of those animals. So you want the right number of laborers, otherwise the farmer is wasting money. And secondly, clear instructions, always important, meaning the manager or the farmer must give clear instructions to the workers to tell them what they must do so that they do whatever they do to the best of their ability and as quick as possible and correctly the first time. And thirdly, you need good tools and equipment. If you want someone to maybe dig a hole because you need to plant something there and they have no tools to do it, they have no spades or anything, they're going to take a lot of time if they must dig it with their hands. So you need the correct tools and equipment to do stuff correctly. Then also worker well-being. Again, this doesn't necessarily mean just physical health. It also can mean mental health. If the person is suffering from depression or suffering from schizophrenia or some bad diseases like that, again, they cannot do everything they're supposed to do to the best of their ability. So managers or farmers have to ensure that workers, that their well-being is being looked after so that they are as most productive as they can be. Then also worker empowerment. This means that usually a farmer or a manager should give laborers, usually specific ones, more responsibility, because the more responsibility they have, the more empowered they feel, and they actually do enjoy their work because they feel like they are being trusted with this specific task. Then lastly as well, worker motivation, and here comes in training. And here to the side I've got a nice training manual specifically for dairy farmers, and this helps also motivate workers because now they feel more empowered because they know more certain things, they're able to do certain things now better, or something they couldn't do now they can do it. So with this also eventually they can get more responsibility, and it's shown that they have trust and so on. So usually training is also very good. Okay, so then we have to go through a couple of laws, labor legislation that we have here in South Africa, specifically having to do with labor. So this is actually to protect not just the farmer or the manager of a farm, but basically the workers as well. So the first one is the Occupational Health and Safety Act. By the way, you guys have to know the names of these acts, and you must also know what they stand for. So meaning if they do give you the act, they can ask you to explain what the act is about, just in a short sentence, or they give you a couple of sentences, scenario, usually they give a scenario, and then they ask you which act best describes this scenario or best fits with this scenario. So the first one, Occupational Health and Safety Act, usually is about worker safety when they work. So meaning it is the manager or the farmer's job to ensure that workers have the correct protective gear. But usually on the farm, you don't have hard hats, depending on what they're doing. But usually they should have overalls, boots, long trousers if they don't have overalls, just something to keep themselves safe so they don't hurt themselves or cut their skin. They also have to know maybe certain precautions to use, maybe safety measures to take, meaning when a tractor is driving along or whatever, they shouldn't stand in front of it, or they shouldn't work on the engine while it's running, that type of thing. So just normal things we generally think is obvious, but it has to be stated on paper to workers so that they know what to do and what not to do, basically. Okay, then we have the Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act, a mouthful. So basically what this means is that if a laborer gets hurt on the job or maybe gets sick on the job, they can get compensation for this, meaning they can get paid. So usually from the government, or sometimes the farmer himself can also help with with a laborer if they have some kind of health issue, but this only applies to when this person gets sick on the job, meaning if they get run over by a tractor, or maybe if the diseases part is usually like say in a laboratory type setup, if they were to work on experimenting with diseases or whatever, that's part of their job, and now they get exposed to it. Actually, for a farmer as well, on farms, is something like the zoonotic diseases, such as foot and mouth disease, meaning if a person were to come into contact with a disease, or let's make it more severe, like Newcastle disease or whatever, some of the other diseases, if they come into contact with that, then they will get the disease as well, but they wouldn't if they did not work on the farm. So in that case, then they must be compensated for the fact that they contracted this disease when working. Okay, then we have the Labor Relations Act. So here usually it has to do with you are allowed to have a union to represent you and to represent all your rights, basically. So if you're unhappy about, again, the working hours or about the wages you get, you can be represented by a union, and the union can fight for your rights. So that's your labor relations. Then fourthly is the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. So by law, the farmer or the manager of the farm, for an example, has to stipulate on black and white what are the conditions under which they will be working, meaning what are the wages they will get, how many days per week must they work, how many hours must they work, will they get paid leave if they maybe are sick, so on. So this has to be on a contract generally, so that both parties, the employee and the employer, agree on how this person will be working, or on what basis the person will be working. Then fifthly, you've got your Employment Equity Act. So generally this has to do with the fact that all laborers, all workers must be regarded as equal and also be treated equally. So in this case, here we have two pictures. This one in the corner shows different religions. So whether you're Islamic, Hindu, Christian, maybe even an atheist if you want to go that far, doesn't matter what your religion is, all people must be given the same chance to actually work in a specific area. Nobody is allowed to be judged against, or meaning let's say no matter who applies for a job, you cannot turn the person away based on their religion. Then also gender, doesn't matter whether you're a guy or a girl. It obviously depends on what type of work you want to do. Generally, girls don't want to do, women do not want to do physical labor. Not the norm. It's basically the norm, but it's not the exception. So usually you do get girls who are butch and want to do that, but it depends on what the job is and so on. But basically you're not allowed to judge against gender. Technically not against age as well. I think this one is based on it's called a gender. So even though this guy is male, it depends on what he sees himself as, whether, male, female, binary, non-binary, whatever. Also, we're not allowed to judge against that, or tell someone, or stop someone from working based on how they see themselves. Then also disability. Technically, you're not allowed to show away someone who is in a wheelchair, but again, it depends on what the work is. And then you've got a nice fat person, so be a little bit of an overweight person. So again, we're not allowed to judge on that as well. Okay, then we have Skills Development Act. So this means that generally an employer must allow his employees to eventually develop any of their skills, meaning get more experience in a specific area of work, or maybe go and attend training seminars and so on, or maybe be given certain books so that they can train themselves. The point being, all workers should be allowed to better themselves by gaining more knowledge. Then also, lastly, we have the Unemployment Insurance Act, UIF. So basically what the UIF is if somebody was working, let's say you have a farm worker. Now, the farm worker, his wife maybe got sick, so he can't work for a while. This intensifies, and after a while, the farmer has to let this laborer go because he can't. I mean, the person is not sick; somebody else of his family member is sick, and he can't keep on paying for someone who is not working for him. So he has to let this worker unfortunately go. So while this person then is unemployed, the UIF fund will kick in. So the farmer must have registered this person for UIF, meaning if something were to happen, then you have to let this person go, so that when this person is workless or jobless, that's the better word, he will get compensation for this. So meaning he will be paid. So the government will pay him a certain amount of money to help him get back on his feet so that he can go search for new work. So the UIF fund is mainly there to help unemployed people, but they were employed in the first place. And now while they're unemployed, searching for new work, they get kind of like a stipend, meaning a small bit of money every month just to help them to get back on their feet. Okay, and that's basically for labor.